All right, we're back with another buy, sell, hold, looking at a couple tight ends. Just a quick announcement, join our Discord, link in the description of this video on how to join it. Hopefully we get some people in there. We'll answer whatever questions you have, Dynasty, redraft, whatever. And hopefully if we get enough people, we can start putting together some leagues. So we'll see this year. We'll see if that happens, but for sure, I think we can do that for next year. So Dynasty, startups, and redraft. But anyways, we're talking some buy, sell, hold here with two tight ends. Starting off with the first one is David Njoku. Is the tight end 11? He's going to be 28 years old here, basically sometime in September. Startup ADP at the 808, so mid eighth round pick as the tight end 11. And he's going for a mid second round pick, the 206 in 2024, or an early second round pick in 2025. And if you watch these videos enough, you kind of should know how I feel about tight ends in general in this range. I'm probably just going to be selling if I can get second round picks for these guys, unless it's a tight end premium league. I'm probably going to be selling them, even if it's a random second. That's just the fact of the matter. Now, Njoku is interesting because he was an actual difference maker last year. He averaged 10 points per game in half PPR as the tight end 7, but he had a stretch where he was winning people leagues, basically from week 8 onwards. So week 8 onwards, he was the tight end 1, and he averaged more than Laporta, over 0.6 points more per game than Laporta. So he was an absolute monster. But unfortunately, that was with Joe Flacco and not his quarterback. I still think, I think a lot of people are using that excuse a little bit too much. But he never did it with Deshaun Watson. It's okay, we saw Deshaun Watson after missing 2 years coming back and playing football for 6 games. And then we saw Deshaun Watson, who was healthy for 2 games, tore up his shoulder, played a couple more games, and then was done for the year. So, can we really use that excuse? I know Deshaun Watson historically doesn't throw to tight ends, but I think people overblow that a little bit. But again, just how I play, in terms of how I value these tight ends. And Njoku is a perfect example of that, by the way. Njoku was last year, heading into the year, the tight end. In October of last year, when he wasn't doing so hot, he was down to the tight end 18, 17. And then he shot up to the tight end 7 and has fallen to the tight end 12 since. But he's kind of a perfect example of I could just trade back and grab someone. I can grab tight end 18, get a piece, and then I'll probably be fine, because the difference between Njoku and the tight end 18 is probably not going to be too much unless he is what we saw last year. So am I wrong about this, Brian? Would you be buying Njoku for a mid to late second, let's say?
No, I don't think I'm buying him there. I do kind of agree. I think you got to be a little bit leery of 7th year breakouts, kind of a thing. He's been on the same team the entire time. Obviously, I'm sure there's been some churn there at the coach level. You know that stuff way better than I do.
Maybe for 1 year, but not really. Stefanski's been there for a while.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I'm just not buying it. I actually used him as a good trade piece to move up into the first round with kind of an early-ish second in one of my leagues during our rookie draft. And I was totally happy doing that. But yeah, I think I'm fine selling him for a mid-second and just kind of, grabbing that receiver, grabbing Trey Benson, something like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It is a little bit interesting with Njoku, though, because I don't think he's the typical. I look at the other guys ranked here, Freiermuth, Komet, those guys I'm easily moving off of, no hesitation. I do hesitate a little bit with Njoku. Yeah, it was a year 7 breakout, which is kind of crazy, but he came into the league as wow, this guy is an athletic freak, and it's just they finally used him and got the ball to him, and we saw what he was capable of. And they even paid him remember people being like, what the hell are they doing? They gave him 4-year, $54 million dollar contract heading into the 2022 season. That was before he broke out. So they kind of knew what they had in him. So hopefully they do make him the centerpiece. He could be the second most targeted player on the team behind Cooper. Like it's Judy, Elijah Moore. Like Njoku could out-target those guys potentially. I think he's probably going to be third, but he could be two. So I am a little bit hesitant just because we did see like difference-making stuff from him. But in the end, like I'll take a gamble on that. Just like him being a little bit more closer, not maybe closer to what he was before last year, but like somewhere in the middle, where it's like, yeah, he's nice, but he's not like a difference maker winning you league. So, any last words there on
I know we're not talking about Freiermuth, but I'd rather have him over Njoku. Because I feel like we kind of have I feel like they might be kind of similar sort of players in a sense. Like, I don't know. We'll talk about Freiermuth in another video. Like and subscribe.
Only a two-year difference between those two, which is funny. Njoku did come in very, very young. And again, we talked about it in the last video. So what was he? 26 last year, basically, if I'm doing math right. 25 the year before. Or maybe he turned 27. I don't know when his birthday is. Looks like it's in the middle of or at the start of the season. I'm just going to figure this out right now. Okay, July 10th. So he was 27 last year. And he'll be 28 this year. But we talked about the years 24 to 28 are like, that's the prime spot for tight ends in terms of fantasy production. Like it's like 60% or something of the tight end, top 12, top 5 tight ends are in that age range. And, after he turned 24, 25, 26, he started to, even 2022, he was actually pretty good. I didn't really realize that, but he was tight end 9 in points per game in 2022. So it's not like it was like the only thing we've ever seen from him. But, I think we'll talk about this next guy who honestly is kind of similar in my opinion. Like it's Jake Ferguson. I think most people would scoff at that and say, no way, like Ferguson's significantly better or whatever. But he's the tight end 12 according to Keep Trade Cut. I think I just saw that he's actually the tight end 10 now. His ADP is right there with Njoku, right? Yeah, right mid to late 8th round pick as a tight end 10, and he's kind of worth the same, the 206 and an early 2025 seconds. So would you rather have Ferguson over Njoku, and are you selling him for the 206 or an early second or any second?
I know what your answer is. Honestly, I am a little higher on Ferguson than Njoku, just given like we know the Cowboys and Dak's tendencies to utilize the tight end, which can kind of go in Ferguson's favor, especially for this year, but it can also kind of go against him in the long run. We saw what happened with Dalton Schultz, just kind of, just let go after being very good on the team for a couple of years, right? And so I think Ferguson's, I don't know, I don't think his long-term value is there. I think he will be there for the next couple of years as the guy. I'm not too worried about, what's their other dude that they...
Schoonmaker?
Yeah, Schoonmaker, the guy they drafted last year. I'm not worried about him taking over the role. I mean, that could happen, with the Ferguson injury or something, and it's like, oh, Schoonmaker is the man now, but I just feel like he's in a really good situation. He's tied to a really high-end quarterback. Not a lot of target competition. I think he will be number 2 on the team in targets and catches next year, just like he was this year. And definitely has that touchdown upside.
Mm-hmm. What's funny is I thought he had more touchdowns last year. He only had 5. And I know he was like leading the NFL in red zone targets.
I think that game they played against Green Bay, he had 3 in the playoffs. And so I think that kind of like paints a different picture in a lot of people's heads. So it's like, yeah, he had like 8 touchdowns. It's like, yeah, well, one of those games didn't count.
Yeah. No, I mean, I'm definitely selling him for any second in non-tight end premium leagues. Probably am, and assuming, again, I'm not just losing, again, like I know when we project these things like, oh, well, there goes 9 points from your team. Well, it's like, I can find a tight end to give me 6 points a game, right? And now there's I'm only losing 2.3 points per game, right? Between Ferguson and the whatever tight end, Juwan Johnson averaged 6.1 points per game. Jonnu Smith had almost 6. Logan Thomas had 6.2. Like, it's not very hard to get to 6 points per game. So that's my whole philosophy with it. It's just like, and it's not like can he improve that much more? Like, he was number 2 on this team, and I think in receptions, yards, and targets. He had 102 targets. I don't think Brandon Cooks had that many. I know Brandon Cooks had more touchdowns. And I know Brandon Cooks didn't have that many yards.
Yeah.
Are we expecting a big bump? I guess the big thing would be like, well, those 5 touchdowns turn into 8 touchdowns, right? And 18 more points is pretty significant for tight ends, right? Now he'd be right there with Njoku, essentially. So yeah, I guess that's like just my philosophy there. It's like when I see 8.3 points per game average, I'm just kind of like, that doesn't do much for me. And again, it was his first year as a starter. He could get better. I just don't know, like you talked about Dalton Schultz, like how much better than Dalton Schultz can he get? And we had Dalton Schultz, I think his best year, was it 2021 was his best year? 2021 was his best year. He was tight end 3, averaged 10 points per game. Yeah. So like I like that. That's good. But how much better, or can he even get to that level of Dalton Schultz?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, I mean, they basically had the same stats almost between that year with Schultz and Ferguson. Right? Just a few more touchdowns, 3 more touchdowns, 7 more catches, and 40 more yards. So it's like, yeah, I mean, that is definitely the ceiling, but I mean, you can't go much higher than 3. So,
yeah.
But like you said, I know your whole thing is about like being a difference maker at tight end and whatnot, but I mean, obviously, like, we're starting to see more of these guys, so it's kind of muddying the waters, we're expecting big things from Brock Bowers, maybe not this year, but in the very short-term future, like Kincaid and Laporta from last year. So it's definitely like it's making it a better case for your argument. I think that we are seeing these guys kind of come in and play at this level, because it's really making, like, what's the difference between, like you said, like an Njoku or a Ferguson versus, like one of these other like guys that are kind of just like there because they caught a bunch of touchdowns, Robert Tonyan from 4 years ago or whatever.
Yeah.
And no, I mean, it's not a bad like thought experiment, but it really does suck. Everyone knows this. Everyone knows the tight end struggle to just not have one, and I think Ferguson's easily one of those guys you just throw into your lineup and not really worry about it. But I could definitely see the argument for trading him for this.
Yeah, and another argument in favor of Ferguson is they did nothing in the offseason. Like, it's still CeeDee Lamb, Brandon Cooks, Gallup's gone, if we care about that, and then Jalen Tolbert. Like, that's all those guys were there last year. Like, I don't know. I don't think anything's different.
They drafted Ryan Flournoy or something. I don't know how to say his name.
Flournoy. That's right. Racy McMath. They have Racy McMath, which is always a cool name. No, but it's,
the only reason I know who Ryan Flournoy is because I thought about taking him in the 30th round of my startup.
Yeah.
And then he got snaked.
So that's definitely going for him in that, like, he could easily be the number 2 guy. And that's what we look for in tight ends. Can he be the 1 or 2 most targeted player? And unless Jalen Tolbert takes this big step, like it probably is Ferguson. So
yeah, and also think about what they did in the run game too. They added Zeke back, and so it's like, how much difference do we think this offense is going to be this year versus what we saw last year? I think they're going to be in a very similar situation, and that's to your point, that's good for Ferguson. Sorry, I'm getting distracted. I'm like reading stuff.
Yeah. But, yeah. And I mean, another thing on top of it is CeeDee Lamb had a ridiculous season last year. Like one of the best wide receiver seasons like we've ever seen. Not many receivers go for over 1,700 yards. Like I think there's like 10 to 15 in the history of the NFL that have gone for over 1,700 yards receiving. Even he could still have a really good season and put up 1,500 yards. And 10 touchdowns, and 120 catches. So where are those 15 catches, 200 yards, and 2 touchdowns going? Well, Ferguson's going to get a little bit of that, right? So there's that argument too. So yeah, I'm not denying he's going to be pretty good. Again, it's just I can find a tight end and give me 6.5 points per game, and that second round pick could turn into a running back down the stretch that I need to plug in, and a veteran James Conner running back because that team's selling, and I get James Conner on my team being the RB5 to end the year or something like that, So it is good conversation though. And I know a lot of people disagree, which is fine. Let us know what you think, unless you had something else to say, Brian.
I was just looking up his prop bets. There's none listed that I see, because I'm just glad I don't live next to a casino, because it's like, I bet the over-under for his touchdowns would be like 5.5 or something like that.
Yeah.
What is
betting? Let's see. Okay, betting pros.
No. It is over/under 5.5. Look at that. I should
touchdowns. Okay.
Yeah,
I'd go over.
That's on DraftKings. Yeah, me too. That's why and it's plus 120. So yeah. A little bit of bonus betting advice for you guys. If you can bet on DraftKings, take the no, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, I'm actually kind of surprised by that.
Yeah.
Like, because it's like we just talked about, there's no one else there, like unless CeeDee Lamb catches more, or, I'd assume Cooks is not going to catch a heat again. Maybe he does, but anyways, yeah, we'll be back. We'll do one more set of these. We'll see. We're kind of getting, there's only so many volatile players in that mid-range that you can talk about, but season's coming up. We'll be putting out a lot of content. We're trying to get to 500 subscribers, hopefully before or shortly after the season starts. And we'll be doing some live shows, start sits, and other stuff. So make sure to join, subscribe.
Tell your sister.
Tell your sister, your family, everyone. Make a second account and subscribe. I don't care. And yeah, we'll see you guys in the next video.